The legendary warrior Gilfus sat upon a dragon's corpse as his final breath drew near. He consumed the golden fruit, hoping for immortality only to find the silence of death. Suddenly light flooded his vision and he realized his hands were no longer weathered by war. He was a mere infant again, reborn into the very family he once founded a millennium ago. Maids entered the room carrying bottles filled with a bubbling, dangerous red substance. A goblin infant exploded into gore after consuming the volatile mixture, painting the room in red. Zeke realized the bottles held ancient dragon blood, a lethal test for any newborn child. Instead of spitting it out, he decided to absorb the power to surpass his previous life. 7 years of secret training in the woods followed, where he forged a body of steel. He was now a 1-star warrior, but his soul remained that of a 10-star master. When an angry boar charged him, Zeke didn't even flinch at the beast's fury. A single light tap smashed the creature's insides, proving his quality over quantity. Visitors from the main house arrived to take him to the Dragon's Nest Academy. He found himself forced into a school uniform and thrown into a world of elites. The entrance exam required students to scratch the invincible regeneration stone. One by one, the students broke their weapons and their bones against the rock. A timid boy named Langus approached Zeke, offering kindness in a place of cruelty. Bullies led by Retin arrived to mock Langus for his lack of talent. Zeke stood his ground, declaring that the timid boy was stronger than all of them. When Zeke's number was called, he walked toward the stone without any weapon. The examiner watched in disbelief as the child prepared to punch the mineral with bare fists. Zeke activated the Dragon Slayer combat technique, his body erupting in blinding yellow ether. The resulting impact didn't just scratch the stone, it shattered it into thousands of pieces. A heavy silence fell over the crowd as the weak, illegitimate child walked away. He received a healing elixir, realizing the technology of this era had truly advanced. Langus was about to fail his own test when Zeke intervened with expert advice. He told the boy to drop the sword and pick up a spear, sensing his true potential. With a single thrust, Langus pierced the stone, shocking the bullies who had mocked him. They had both passed, earning them entry into the prestigious academy. However, the head of the house, Balsa Eldragon, appeared with a crushing 8-star aura. While other children trembled and struggled to breathe, Zeke looked at him with pure disdain. Zeke knew he would eventually have to face this man and dismantle his corrupt legacy. A month later, training intensified as the students learned the modified Dragon's Breath. Zeke found the simplified technique useless and continued his own extreme physical regimen. Leica, the family head's daughter, approached him with a proposal to serve her. Zeke rejected her instantly, his own aura scaring her into silence. Offended and curious, Leica challenged him to a duel at the training grounds. Zeke treated the match as a teaching moment, dodging her lightning-fast strikes with ease. He punched her with such force that she was sent crashing into the far wall. To his surprise, the pain pushed Leica to advance to the 2-star realm instantly. Zeke smiled as he faced her true power, eager to see how much she had grown. He allowed her to hit him with lightning bolts just to study the property of electricity. Within moments, Zeke's own aura began to sparkle with newly learned electrical energy. He unveiled a new technique, the Tempest of Thunder, ending the match in a flash. He offered to train her, recognizing her talent and her desire to avoid a forced marriage. A new instructor named Freya arrived, bringing news of a terrifying survival test. They were to be sent to Poison Dragon Mountain, a place where death lurked behind every tree. While others panicked, Zeke simply smirked, remembering his old training grounds. The legend was just getting started, and the world was not yet ready for the return of Gilfus. Years passed in the secluded corner of the Eldrian estate where Zeke honed his underdeveloped physical vessel. He practiced the ancient breathing techniques of Gilfus to expand his mana circuits every single night. By the age of 7, his mana core had already reached a level that most adult knights would envy. His mother watched from the shadows, fearful yet hopeful for the future of her illegitimate son. Zeke knew that the upcoming entrance exam for the Dragon's Nest was his only ticket to true freedom. Every morning began with 1,000 strikes against a reinforced ironwood post. He felt the familiar weight of his past martial prowess slowly returning to his small hands. The physical strain of the 10-star soul was immense, often causing his skin to crack under the pressure. yet he refused to stop until the technique was perfected to its absolute limit. The other children of the Eldrian family mocked him as he walked through the estate halls. He ignored their petty insults, for a dragon does not concern itself with the buzzing of flies. Finally, the day arrived for the grand selection at the gates of the dragon's nest. Thousands of young hopefuls from across the empire stood in line, each vibrating with nervous energy. Zeke scanned the crowd, noting several individuals with high-tier mana signatures. A group of noble students from the prestigious North Hall approached him with clear malice. They laughed at his common clothes and the lack of a family crest on his chest. Before the situation could escalate, the head proctor signaled the start of the first trial. The first test was the measurement of potential using a massive ancient crystal. One by one, students touched the stone only to see it glow with a faint dim light. A young girl with red hair caused the stone to pulse with a bright green hue, signaling high potential. Zeke stepped forward when his name was finally called, ignoring the whispers of the audience. He placed his palm against the cold surface of the stone and released just a fraction of his power. The crystal didn't just glow, it screamed with a blinding white light that forced everyone to cover their eyes. Cracks began to spiderweb across the ancient relic as it struggled to contain his immense soul. A deafening silence fell over the arena as the crystal shattered into 1,000 tiny fragments. The proctors stood frozen, having never seen a student destroy the measurement stone before. Zeke simply turned around and walked back to his place as if nothing unusual had happened. The second trial was a combat simulation against enchanted suits of armor. While other students struggled in groups, Zeke stood alone in the center of the ring. With a movement faster than the eye could follow, he struck the first suit in its center mass. The metal exploded outward, sent flying by the sheer kinetic force of his strike. Within seconds, the remaining suits were reduced to piles of scrap metal at his feet. From the high balcony, the academy director narrowed his eyes at the young boy. He sensed a presence within Zeke that didn't belong to a child of 7 years. At the end of the day, Zeke was assigned to the most elite dormitory in the Dragon's Nest. The noble students he had embarrassed glared at him from their inferior quarters. Zeke entered his new room and immediately sat down to begin his evening cultivation. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey back to the peak. But a shadow was moving through the academy halls, searching for the source of the shattered stone. Suddenly, the door to Zeke's room burst open, revealing a person who shouldn't be there. Standing in the doorway was the strongest student of the academy, holding a blood-red blade. The intruder spoke in a cold voice, demanding to know the true identity of the boy named Zeke. Zeke stood up slowly, the golden aura around him flaring with a violent intensity. He realized that his peaceful training days were officially over before they had even begun. If the academy wanted a monster, he would show them exactly what a legend looked like. The grand arena of the Dragon's Nest hummed with the expectant energy of thousands of spectators. Zeke stood at the entrance of the tunnel, his eyes fixed on the shimmering barrier of the combat zone. Members of the West Hall whispered amongst themselves, plotting to eliminate the illegitimate upstart early. Zeke tightened his gloves, feeling the familiar resonance of his 10-star soul vibrating within his chest. The announcer's voice boomed across the stands, declaring the commencement of the final inter-hall showdown. Aegis stepped onto the sand, his crystalline sword reflecting the harsh light of the mana lamps. Zeke walked out to meet him, each step leaving a faint golden crack in the reinforced floor. Aegis laughed, claiming that a child of unknown blood could never understand the weight of true genius. Zeke simply tilted his head, noting that he had slain gods while Aegis's ancestors were still learning to crawl. With a roar of mana, Aegis lunged forward, unleashing a blizzard of frozen needles. Zeke didn't even raise his hands as the ice shattered against an invisible wall of pure pressure. The crowd fell silent as they witnessed the total negation of the West Hall's greatest technique. Zeke vanished in a blur of speed, reappearing inches from Aegis's terrified face. A single punch, reinforced with the memories of 1,000 battles, struck the center of Aegis's chest. The genius was sent flying across the stadium, crashing through the heavy stone walls of the West Hall balcony. The teachers of the West Hall stood up in outrage, their hidden weapons gleaming in the light. Zeke turned his gaze toward the VIP box, his eyes glowing with a terrifying ancient power. He warned them that if they interfered, the Dragon's Nest would become their graveyard. The corrupt instructors froze, paralyzed by the sheer weight of Zeke's bloodlust. Zeke's companions from the North Hall cheered, realizing their leader was far beyond their wildest dreams. The remaining contenders from the other halls threw down their weapons, refusing to fight a literal monster. The headmaster descended from his throne, bowing his head in respect to the young boy. He declared Zeke the undisputed champion of the generation and the future of the Eldrian family. Zeke looked at the trophy, but his thoughts were on the 1,000-year-old mystery he still had to solve. He remembered his past life as Gilfus and the friends he had lost to the sands of time. But this life was a second chance to protect those who could not protect themselves. His sister ran onto the field, throwing her arms around him in a burst of pure joy. In the distance, the shadows of the Eldrian family elders watched, their plans for the illegitimate child now ruined. Zeke felt their gaze and sent a pulse of mana so strong it shattered the windows of their high tower. He was no longer a pawn in their games, he was the board itself. As the sun began to set, the chaotic energy of the tournament gave way to a serene evening. Zeke walked back to his dormitory thinking of the new techniques he had developed during the fight. The corruption in the West Hall had been exposed and a new era for the Academy had begun. Zeke knew that his journey was far from over, but for the first time in 2 lives he felt at home. He looked up at the stars, counting them until he saw the 10th one twinkling just for him. The legacy of Gilfus Eldrigan was dead, but the legend of Zeke was just beginning to breathe. With a final deep breath, he released all the tension of his previous life's regrets. The world would soon know the name of the boy who conquered death itself. He clenched his fist, feeling the absolute power of a 10-star soul finally reaching maturity. In the quiet of the night, the strongest warrior in history finally found his peace.